Over 1,000 people are suing the makers of drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy.
More than 1,800 lawsuits have been filed over adverse side effects, with the liability estimated at more than $2 billion.
So it's like having a blind spot right in the middle of your vision.
What they want is the manufacturers to put a little bit more effort into researching the potential side effects.
What's up, guys? It's Shashank, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the end of Ozempic. Now, a lot of you guys have been watching, and I'm sure many of us are taking GLP-1 agonists. Now, as you might know, there's been a lot of controversy around Ozempic recently, and a lot of people are taking these GLP-1 agonists, and more lawsuits are coming out. In fact, thousands of lawsuits have been filed against people like Ozempic, like Wegovy, saying that they failed to tell people about the side effects that they were going to experience. And this includes gastroparesis, stomach ulcers, and even going blind. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about these claims, why they're saying that the drug might be causing problems, whether you need to be worried or not, and whether you should even take it or not if you're someone considering these drugs. Now, before we get started, I want to let you know that I have a biochemistry degree, so I do know how to read and understand science. I'm also a certified personal trainer. Not only that, but I've spent the better part of the last 2 years healing my gut, my hormones, and doing a lot of research into helping myself recover from severe burnout after dieting and overtraining to the extreme in the pursuit of an unrealistic body composition. That being said, let's get into the video. So first, we need to talk about how GLP-1s actually work. Now, GLP-1 is glucagon-like peptide 1. It's going to take longer for things to digest, and it's going to make you feel fuller for longer. But what it does is it stimulates your pancreas to release insulin so that it brings your blood sugar levels down. It also decreases glucagon, which is basically the way that your liver gives your body quick energy. Right? When you need to move, glucagon gets released from the liver and you start being able to run. So all of these things combined basically lead to you feeling fuller for longer, and wanting to eat less. Now, whether that makes you a less active person or not is debatable because of these effects, but it certainly works, and a lot of people see weight loss because of it. So now we're going to dive into the potential side effects that you could experience if you take this drug, starting with gastroparesis. Gastroparesis is basically the slowing down of your intestines. It's a state where your stomach basically gets weakened and it isn't able to process food very normally. So you eat a little bit and you start getting nauseous, you may start vomiting, and this is actually a very common thing in people who have a history of problems with eating, let's say. And what happens is when you don't eat for a long time, which is basically the point of these drugs, your stomach atrophies. It's a use it or lose it type of situation. Your stomach has muscles around it. And so if you don't feed it food, it's going to forget how to digest food. And so gastroparesis is a very real potential consequence of doing these things. You know, I remember back in the day, people used to get their stomach stapled, and it's really kind of mimicking the same thing, just with a tablet now instead of actually having to take a surgery. And those people used to have a lot of issues with acid reflux, with their bowels not working right, basically. And all of these things are messing with how your body processes food, which I don't think ever leads to great gastrointestinal health. But for that reason, you could experience gastroparesis. Another thing to note is issues with other organs like pancreas and your gallbladder. So I mentioned that these GLP-1s work by reducing your blood sugar, which stimulates the pancreas to release insulin, right? That's the way that it works. Now, when you're constantly taking this drug and constantly trying to keep your blood sugar low, it means that you might be overtaxing your pancreas and overtaxing your insulin. Now, this could lead to inflammation of the pancreas. So your pancreas does have GLP-1 receptors, and a lot of times stimulating insulin is what brings down your glucose level, right? But this kind of stimulation could alter the enzyme secretion of your pancreas and lead to pancreatic issues. It's kind of still debated, but it is something to watch out for. Additionally, when you take a GLP-1, it reduces the contraction of your gallbladder. Now, the gallbladder is actually what releases and reuptakes bile, right? It sits near your liver, and bile is what is used often to break down fats, heavy fats. So a lot of people taking GLP-1s or who have stomach issues already, like Crohn's, IBD, etc., have issues with their gallbladder not being able to digest heavy fatty meals. As someone with IBS and who's had gut issues in the past, I find similar issues. I can't have heavy fatty items. The problem comes is that you are also losing weight at a rapid pace often, which means that the liver is dumping a lot of the cholesterol from your fat into the body, and that sits in the bile. Now, bile is being cleared at a slower rate, and so that means that if the bile is not being cleared out, it's just sitting there with this bunch of cholesterol. So you get this kind of sludge that just sits there in your body and it doesn't actually move. So what can that cause? Well, you can get gallstones, which are stones in your gallbladder, right? And those usually will require some sort of medication to be taken, but they also might require surgery. And so that is going to be a potential complication. You could also get inflammation of the gallbladder itself, which probably doesn't feel great. I'm unaware, but that is a potential side effect. And the last thing to worry about is your kidneys. Now, I'm a big proponent that the kidneys are the lifeblood of any human being. It's where your adrenals sit. It's where, you get most of your filtration. It's where everything gets controlled. Your blood pressure, your fluid retention, your ability to move. Kidneys are extremely, extremely important, and this is one that I would not take lightly. But whenever you have any sort of gastrointestinal issues, it often affects your ability to stay hydrated. It affects your ability to process nutrients, and all of that load comes down into the kidneys. If you are consistently having vomiting, you're having nausea, diarrhea, or you're unable to get in the proper nutrients that you need, you risk some very serious acute kidney issues. Additionally, when people diet heavily, it can affect their blood pressure. When you have very, very low blood pressure, it means that your kidneys can take a hit, basically. When you don't have enough blood pressure to sustain yourself, your kidneys do not get the blood flow that they need to accurately perform their job. And so for that reason, you can get an acute kidney injury. And that's, again, not something to be taken lightly. So these are, of course, the main issues that people are reporting. Now, there is one last issue that I wanted to dive into, and that is going to be blindness, otherwise known as, let me read this, non-arteritic anterior ischemic optic neuropathy. And basically what this means is that there is such a loss of blood flow to the optic nerve, which is the nerve behind your eye that sends signals to your brain, basically telling you that you can see, that it atrophies and you are unable to use it. And you cannot fix it with LASIK. You cannot fix it with contacts or glasses because it's not a problem with the ability of the eye to focus. It's a problem with the actual cord behind your eyes. It would be like trying to fix your computer monitor when the HDMI cord behind it is actually the problem. It's not going to work. And so this is not something to be taken lightly. Now, this condition can onset pretty badly in the sense that you can just wake up one day and you won't be able to see in one eye. And the other problem is that once you've had it in one eye, you're more likely to develop it in the other eye. So it's kind of a double whammy. Now, in the article that I looked at particularly, they referenced a particular study saying that the correlation was seen as high. Now, I did a little bit of reading into the study, and I'm going to make sure that the study is linked down below, but I'm going to talk about what I think about this study, and you can make your own decisions. But basically, it was a retrospective matched cohort design study. And so for layman's terms, what that means is that they didn't actually pick any new participants. Basically, what they did is they went and they found existing records at one particular hospital that they then analyzed. And that was about 1,700 patients. But they didn't actually analyze all of those. They then looked for people who had either type 2 diabetes or were overweight or obese. Now, both of these on their own already increase the risk of having the optic nerve issue, the ischemiopathy. And so we're already skewing the data in favor of people that are more likely to take this. And ironically, that's going to be the same people who are also going to be taking Ozempic or Wegovy. You're not going to take it if you're a skinny, lean, athletic person. You're going to take it if you probably are diabetic and overweight or obese. So we're already seeing potential problems with how this is set up. So that particular cohort then brings us to around 1,700 patients. And in these groups, they looked to see who was having eye problems between people who were prescribed either GLP-1 or non-GLP-1 diabetes medications. So the non-GLP-1 would be your regular things like insulin. And then the GLP-1s will be your semaglutide, your Ozempic, your Wegovy. And what they found is that in the type 2 diabetes group, the people who took Ozempic were about 4.2 times more likely to develop this ischemic neuropathy than people who took insulin. The overweight or obese group was about 7 to 8 times more likely to develop this problem than people who took non-GLP-1 diabetes medications. So here are a few problems that I see occurring with this study. It is referencing a small cohort, right? It's already finding people that probably have poor metabolic health, people who are overweight or obese or have type 2 diabetes. Also, we're only looking at about 1,700 people. Looking at 1,700 people who you cannot control, who aren't in front of you, who you're just looking at their medical records, is not a great way to design a study because you cannot be sure that those people are actually following the protocols to the T, that they're doing everything else that their doctor is telling them to. I mean, let's be honest. When's the last time you went to the doctor and followed their medication advice to the T? They told you get up every day and eat this healthy breakfast and go to sleep at the same time. And when was the last time that you did that consistently, or even myself, for more than a week, right? Probably never. And so looking at medical records without actual intervention from a human being is poor data, I think. But either way, this only potentially proves association and not causation. What we know is that these people were more likely if they were taking this drug. but they might have been doing other things that were actually causing that. And with a small sample size, there's no real way to know if this is causing the issue or not. And even if it is, the risk seems relatively low, because we're talking about putting an untested medication in the hands of high-risk individuals, and we're getting about 5 to 9% in the highest risk groups over the course of 3 years. So you'd have to be taking this medication for 3 years, and then in that case, anywhere from 1 in 20 to 1 in 10 people could develop this if they were already having obesity and type 2 diabetes. So you might be saying, okay, well, what's the takeaway from all of this? Let's put it all together. Here is my advice, and I am not a doctor, but this is my particular advice as someone who is trying to help people lose weight, get their gut health in check, get their hormones in check, and do it without burnout. And of course, if you want coaching, go ahead and click the link below. But what I honestly think you should do is, if you are worried about any of these side effects, don't do it. It is not worth the risk. I believe unless you have tried a healthy diet, genuinely, a healthy diet, and I don't mean, you gotta do 75 hard or anything like that. I mean, have your artificial sweeteners, have your Diet Cokes, have 3 Diet Cokes a day before you start trying this stuff, right? Anything to help yourself lose weight, to reduce your type 2 diabetes. Get outside, get moving, feel happier, reduce stress. These will help you a lot more than any Ozempic or Wegovy ever could, in my opinion. But if you have tried all of those things and your doctor is telling you that it's time to try these things, I would say go ahead and proceed. But the caveat here is that if you are someone who has existing bowel conditions like Crohn's, like IBD, like IBS, you probably need to stay away from these medications. You already have an immune system that's on the fritz, you have a gut problem, you have trouble digesting, and adding these to people who already have issues getting in proper nutrition or properly absorbing things is just going to create havoc in the body, in my opinion. I would not recommend, if you have any of those dietary issues, to take this medication. Stay far away. But at the end of the day, anything new is always scary. Whether it's peptides, whether it's medications, whether it's even new foods, a lot of times we don't know what the side effects are, and we can become very afraid. We take the risk when we try new things that it might not work out because we think that the potential benefits could outweigh the risks. If you feel like Ozempic is going to get you to a healthier, happier you, then it's worth it. It's worth the risk. You just have to weigh the pros and the cons, and you have to be okay with the risk that you're taking. So those are the current problems that are being faced with Ozempic, Wegovy, any of these GLP-1 agonists. If you are someone who's looking into this, I highly suggest that you check out all the risks and the risk factors for yourself. Talk to your doctor, make sure it's something that you're really okay with taking. If you are someone who's struggling with their weight, who wants to lose weight, fix their gut, fix their hormones in a sustainable way without burning out, make sure to like this video, give me a follow, and go ahead and click the link down below for coaching. Hope you enjoyed the video, hope you learned something, and with that, I will see you in the next one.